Okay, let's unpack this. Billions of humans, all living forever. I mean, it's a promise you can find in sacred texts across the world, right? But if you actually stop and think about it, how? How is that even possible? Where would they all go? How could it possibly work? This is really the central paradox you've brought to our deep dive today.
It really is. And it's such a profound question. What's fascinating here is that this isn't just, a theological question. It really hits on very practical, almost scientific assumptions we have about reality itself.
Hmm.
So our mission today is to explore the intriguing ways different cultures, different ideas have grappled with this, with the whole concept of eternal life. We want to move beyond just a simple yes or no and get into the how and the why that makes this such a deeply compelling human desire.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've shared some incredible sources that really got us thinking about this eternal question. So, what we're going to do is try and pull out the most compelling ideas, the surprising facts from all these materials, really help you navigate the diverse perspectives on what living forever might truly mean and maybe, what it says about us. So, when we first hear eternal life, I think for many of us, we immediately picture an endless physical existence, like right here on Earth, forever. But the sources you shared, they pivot away from that pretty quickly. What's that initial, maybe less obvious understanding that often gets missed?
That's a really crucial starting point. The sources immediately highlight that for many major traditions, think Christianity, Islam, the discussion of eternal life isn't primarily about the physical body we have now. It pivots to the continuation of the soul.
The soul, right?
Yeah, that familiar idea of a non-physical essence of who we are. And what's interesting is the texts often aren't vague.
Mm-hmm.
They describe this soul as keeping its memory, its identity.
Just personality.
Exactly, its unique attributes. But, and this is key, it's freed from our current physical limitations.
Hmm.
So it's a much more nuanced concept than just some generic spirit floating about.
Okay, so that immediately kind of dissolves that initial problem, that paradox of limited physical space. If it's not physical in the way we understand it, those constraints just vanish.
They do.
But then our sources throw another curveball, don't they? What about the traditions that do envision some kind of physical return? How do they deal with the issues we started with, like the sheer numbers?
Right, and that's where it gets, I think, even more fascinating. Some traditions absolutely do envision a physical resurrection. But crucially, it's within a totally reimagined universe,
Huh.
a transformed reality. The sources mention concepts like a new heaven and new earth, from the book of
Oh,
Revelation.
okay.
And what's compelling is how these texts describe it. It's not just our world tidied up a bit. It's portrayed as a truly cosmic reset, where, for instance, there's no more sea or no more night, things that suggest a fundamental reordering of reality, something that moves beyond our current physical laws entirely. It's like it's designed for a completely new kind of eternity.
So it's less about cramming everyone into our current finite space and more like installing a brand new operating system for existence itself.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
It sidesteps the limitations by changing the very nature of the system.
That's a powerful shift in thinking.
Okay.
Okay. But beyond these sort of literal interpretations, whether it's a continuing soul or a grand new physical realm, the sources also talk about very different takes on eternal life, ones that maybe don't involve an afterlife in the traditional sense at all. How do they approach it?
Well, this angle is fascinating because it completely reframes eternal life. It shifts it to something more communal, maybe, rather than purely individual. Our sources highlight figures whose ideas or their art or their actions continue to shape generations long after they're gone. They essentially achieve a kind of immortality, not in their physical being, but in their enduring influence.
Through their legacy.
Precisely. Through their impact on human thought, on culture, maybe even the fabric of society. It's like the ripple effect that never truly fades out. Think of, someone like Shakespeare. His physical life ended centuries ago.
Right.
But his words, his insights into being human, they're still alive. They still influence countless lives today. That's a form of living on.
Yeah, I see. And building on that, some sources mention something slightly different, reaching a state of truth or enlightenment. That feels like a different kind of timeless awareness that doesn't fade. It's not so much about being remembered by others, but more about a lasting personal state. How's that different from the legacy idea?
That is a key distinction, yeah.
Hmm.
In this view, eternal life becomes more of an internal achievement. It's about gaining a profound understanding or reaching a higher state of being that is inherently timeless. It transcends the physical limits of life and death as we normally perceive them.
So it's like an awakening.
Exactly. An awakening that, once achieved, simply is. It exists regardless of the passage of external time, or even whether others remember you. It's framed as a liberation from the constraints of impermanence, a very different flavor of eternity.
Okay, but let's shift gears completely for a second, because the sources also brought up this really fascinating, almost sci-fi dimension, technology. How does that factor into this whole eternal life discussion?
It's really intriguing how modern thinking has started to grapple with this, isn't it? We're suddenly talking about concepts like, well, uploading human consciousness into digital worlds.
Right, like the Matrix, but maybe voluntary?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Or even transferring consciousness into different, maybe more resilient forms or bodies. Robots, avatars, who knows? Now, obviously, this is not what ancient texts envisioned at all.
Not quite, no.
But it presents this compelling thought experiment on how eternal life might be pursued through purely scientific, purely technological means. It takes that idea of overcoming physical limitations to a whole new level. It's almost like creating a digital version of the soul we talked about earlier,
Right.
but one that's entirely man-made.
It's just incredible how diverse these interpretations are. I mean, they span from ancient spiritual concepts right through to these futuristic digital dreams. But reading through the sources, it seems like they also suggest that maybe the core of this eternal question, maybe it isn't really about the logistics at all, not the spiritual logistics, not the technological ones either.
I think that's a really powerful insight emerging from the materials.
Yeah.
Yes. When you look at the broader implications, the sources seem to suggest that perhaps eternal life isn't ultimately about the math or the sheer logistics of, housing billions of souls or bodies or consciousnesses.
Hmm.
Maybe it's fundamentally about meaning. Yeah, the deep human yearning for the idea that your life truly matters, that it has significance beyond your physical lifespan, and maybe also the hope that justice will ultimately prevail. That death isn't the absolute, final, definitive end to everything. Whether you interpret these concepts literally or spiritually or symbolically, it seems to boil down to this powerful promise or hope that speaks to a core human need, the need to know that you are not forgotten.
Mm. So we've really gone on quite the journey here. We've explored souls continuing in non-physical forms, these ideas of cosmic resets, symbolic legacies, timeless enlightenment, and even, technological consciousness uploads. It genuinely challenges our everyday understanding of space and time and even what it really means to be alive.
Absolutely. And what this truly highlights, connecting it back to the bigger picture from the sources, is that while eternal life for billions, in a purely physical, literal sense, might seem impossible given our current understanding of reality, in the human spirit, as an idea, it's incredibly powerful and persistent. It really shifts the conversation away from literal mathematics and moves it towards a deeper exploration of purpose, of justice, and again, that profound human desire to know that you are not forgotten.
Which really raises an important question for you, our listener, doesn't it? If that core human yearning behind the idea of eternal life is really about your life mattering, about justice eventually coming and death not being the absolute end, does understanding all these diverse interpretations change how you view your own impact, your own life, right here, right now?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it truly mean to live a life that leaves an eternal mark? Whether you think about that physically or spiritually or symbolically, what does that look like?